In this episode, we're going to learn how to think about AI security tools without getting lost in product names, brand claims, or the feeling that you need to buy something to be safe. For brand new learners, tools can feel like magic boxes that automatically fix problems, and marketing language can make it seem like any tool can do everything. The reality is that tools are just helpers, and they only help when you know what you need them to watch, what you need them to stop, and how they will actually be used day to day. A good review is not about finding a perfect tool, because perfect tools do not exist. A good review is about understanding coverage, noticing gaps, and choosing tools that fit how the organization really works, not how it wishes it worked. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. When we say coverage, we mean which risks and which parts of an AI system a tool can address. An AI system is not just a model sitting alone. It usually includes inputs from users or other systems, data pipelines that transform information, model hosting that runs the computation, and outputs that may trigger actions or decisions. Coverage can exist at multiple layers, such as input filtering, output inspection, access controls, logging and monitoring, and protection for connected data sources. If a tool only covers one layer, it can still be valuable, but you need to be honest about what it does not cover. A tool that detects risky prompts might not protect training data storage, and a tool that monitors model performance might not detect misuse by a privileged user. By thinking in layers, you can map what a tool can see and what it cannot see. A gap is the space between what you need to manage risk and what your current controls actually handle. Gaps happen when a tool does not support a certain use case, when it cannot see critical data, when it cannot integrate with systems you rely on, or when it produces results that no one can act on. Beginners sometimes assume a gap is simply an absence of a feature, but a gap can also be a practical failure, like a feature that exists but is too noisy to trust. A tool that generates hundreds of low-value alerts a day creates an operational gap because it overwhelms humans. Another gap can occur when the tool works in a lab but fails in a real environment, like when it cannot handle your data types, your languages, or your traffic patterns. A careful review looks for these practical gaps early, because they are the difference between a tool that helps and a tool that becomes shelfware. Operational fit is about whether a tool can be adopted, maintained, and trusted by real people with real constraints. Fit includes technical compatibility, but it also includes staffing, ownership, cost, training needs, and the ability to respond when the tool flags something. A tool that requires constant tuning might be a great choice for a large team, but a poor choice for a small team that is already overloaded. A tool that is easy to deploy but hard to interpret might create confusion and slow response during an incident. Fit also includes how the tool aligns with existing workflows, like how alerts are handled, how tickets are created, and how changes are approved. A tool is only useful if it becomes part of daily habits, and operational fit is how that happens. To review tools sensibly, you start by being clear about what problem you are trying to solve, because tools are designed for specific jobs. Some tools are preventive, meaning they block or constrain risky behavior, like restricting who can access certain model features or preventing sensitive data from being sent to a model. Some tools are detective, meaning they observe and alert, like logging prompts and outputs and flagging anomalies. Some tools are corrective, meaning they help with response and cleanup, like tracing which data was used and which outputs were produced during a suspicious period. Many tools claim to do all three, but in practice they usually do one well and the others partially. A beginner-friendly approach is to ask, what does this tool stop, what does it detect, and what does it help me investigate after something goes wrong? A very common category in AI security is monitoring and logging, because you cannot manage what you cannot see. A monitoring-focused tool might collect prompts, model responses, metadata about who requested what, and signals about system health. When reviewing this category, coverage questions include whether it can capture all relevant interactions, including those from automated processes, not just humans. You also want to know whether it can track connections across systems, like which request led to which downstream action. Gaps can appear if the tool cannot capture certain channels, like file uploads, or if it only logs partial content in a way that removes the evidence you need later. Fit questions include data retention, privacy considerations, and whether people can search and interpret logs quickly during investigations. Another category is content and policy enforcement, which aims to prevent unsafe or disallowed usage. These tools often focus on scanning inputs for sensitive data, scanning prompts for prohibited intent, and scanning outputs for policy violations or leakage. Coverage questions include what kinds of sensitive data it can detect, whether it can handle different formats, and whether it can enforce different rules for different user groups. A gap can appear when a tool is good at detecting obvious patterns but struggles with subtle cases, such as indirect personal information or context-dependent sensitive content. Fit questions include how often it blocks legitimate work, how easy it is to adjust rules, and how you handle exceptions without creating loopholes. A tool that blocks too much can drive users to bypass it, which increases risk rather than reducing it. A third category is model and data integrity protection, which focuses on drift, poisoning, and changes that can quietly degrade trust. These tools may track model versions, monitor performance metrics, watch for unusual shifts in input data, and detect changes in output behavior. Coverage questions include whether the tool can monitor both the data stream and the model's behavior, because drift can come from either side. Gaps can show up if the tool cannot connect to the right data sources or if it cannot handle the scale or diversity of inputs. Fit questions include how the tool explains changes, because a number that says performance dropped is less useful than an explanation that points to a specific input shift. This category is especially important for AI systems that influence decisions, because subtle drift can create real harm long before anyone recognizes it. A fourth category is access control and governance enforcement, which focuses on who can do what and how decisions are documented. These tools might integrate with identity systems, enforce least privilege, and track approvals for changes to models, data sources, or prompts. Coverage questions include whether the tool supports different roles in different environments, such as development and production. Gaps can appear if a tool cannot enforce controls across all the places the model is used, especially if there are multiple teams and multiple integration points. Fit questions include how approvals are handled, how quickly access can be granted or revoked, and how the tool supports audits without creating extra work. For beginners, it helps to remember that many incidents begin as access problems, meaning the wrong person had the wrong capability at the wrong time. When you evaluate coverage, it helps to think about the attack and failure stories you are trying to prevent. One story is data leakage, where sensitive data leaves the organization through prompts or outputs. Another is misuse, where someone tries to extract secrets or push the model into unsafe behavior. Another is integrity failure, where the model becomes unreliable through drift or tampering. Another is operational disruption, where the AI system causes outages or errors that spread into other systems. Each tool category helps with some stories and not others, so the review should ask which stories are covered and which are still exposed. This story-based thinking prevents you from being impressed by features that do not matter for your real risks. Now let's talk about the difference between a feature checklist and a real tool review. A feature checklist asks whether the tool has a capability, but a real review asks whether the capability works in your environment and produces outcomes you can act on. For example, a tool might claim it detects sensitive data, but the real question is how well it detects the sensitive data your organization actually handles and how many false alarms it produces. A tool might claim it detects anomalies, but the real question is whether it can distinguish between normal growth and suspicious behavior. Another real question is whether the tool provides enough context for a person to investigate quickly, because an alert without context is just anxiety. Beginners should learn early that useful security is not about having many alerts. It is about having high confidence signals that lead to clear action. Fit is also about people, not just technology, and this is where many tool choices fail. Every tool needs an owner, meaning someone responsible for keeping it working, tuning it, and making sure the output is acted on. Every tool needs a workflow, meaning a predictable way to handle what it finds, such as triage, escalation, and closure. If a tool produces alerts, but no one is responsible for triage, the tool becomes noise. If a tool blocks behavior, but there is no fast path to handle legitimate exceptions, people will work around it. A strong review asks who will own it, what their workload will be, and what happens on the worst day when many alerts arrive at once. Fit is the difference between security theater and security practice. It is also important to recognize that tools can overlap, and overlap can be good or bad depending on why it exists. Overlap can be good when it provides defense in depth, meaning two different controls catch the same type of risk in different ways. Overlap can be bad when it creates duplicated alerts, conflicting rules, or confusing ownership, because then people waste time reconciling tools instead of reducing risk. A good review will map overlaps intentionally and decide whether they provide resilience or just redundancy. For example, input scanning and output scanning may both help with data leakage, but they serve different moments in the pipeline, and together they can provide stronger coverage. The key is clarity about what each tool is responsible for and how they work together. As we close, remember that reviewing AI security tools is fundamentally about judgment, not shopping. You are comparing what a tool can cover against the risks you need to manage, and you are identifying gaps that remain so you can address them with other controls or process changes. You are also asking whether the tool fits the reality of how people work, because even excellent technology fails when ownership and workflow are unclear. When you learn to evaluate tools by coverage, gaps, and operational fit, you become harder to fool by marketing and better at building a security program that actually reduces harm. This mindset will continue to matter as AI systems evolve, because the names of tools will change, but the need for clear coverage, honest gap analysis, and workable fit will stay the same.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.